much editing with these when you've actually done the filming though?
We can do as much as you like.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, basically...
Sorry, who are you?
Oh, yeah, sorry. My name is Roger Massey. Mr. Nuttall here behind the camera is... Oh, is that a wave?
That was a wave,
oh, right.
yeah.
A wave from the back of the hand. You've got to turn your hand around to wave.
Yeah.
Think of the camera. I mean, basically, Ian asked me to show him how I taper my arrows. I've got a slightly different technique to a lot of people. I've got a tapering jig here. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to show you how to do it in a fairly simple, rudimentary way. The reason I don't tend to use a tapering jig is tapering jig, you've got tapered bits of metal with a piece of sandpaper on one side. You basically run the shaft up the groove, spinning in a drill, and it takes wood off. I actually found that it tends to jam and it can stress the shaft. You also end up with a load of build-up of sawdust inside. I've actually sawn a groove right in the middle of it, so I can just run a brush down it and clear it out. Most of the tapering I do though, I don't do over the whole length of the shaft. I tend to just do the back 10 inches or so. So I just can't be bothered with a tapering jig. So I'll show you my process and make of it what you will. So this is the shaft I'm going to taper. What I do is the only points I use are top hat piles. So I've already put a thread on the end of the shaft. In the drill I've got the top hat thread forming tool. So I can actually just spin the shaft into the drill. So that's in now. A lot of people just put the shaft straight into the chuck of the drill, but you've got to hold the shaft so firmly to do the tapering that you end up crushing the shaft and damaging it. So this shaft is actually cut to the length that I want to use. I've marked on it where I want to start my tapering, at about 10 inches. Don't have to be that accurate with it. Other tools that I've got some scales here. If I'm doing a weight match set, which I always do, I just weigh them when I've finished tapering, just to check it's right. I've got a set of vernier calipers as well, just to check the diameter of the shaft as I'm actually doing the tapering. So I'm going to taper by hand and feel and measure it with the verniers. So I've got a bit of 80 grit paper. Say paper, it's actually cloth backed. I prefer cloth backed, it's a bit more flexible and it doesn't tear and it lasts a bit longer. I tend to rest the drill on a surface so I don't get wrist ache, because if I'm doing a large number of shafts you will get wrist ache. So basically just spin the shaft, starting the paper at 10 inches. Go all the way along, and you can see the material that's come off. Next time I spin it, I'll start at about 9 inches from the end. I'll go all the way along, then I'll do 8 inches, 6, 5, 4, just go like that. With a new bit of paper you can see quite a lot of material comes off. With an 1132 shaft I tend to find that if you're tapering 10 inches you will lose around 15 grains in weight going from 1132 down to 5/16. So I've got this set at 5/16. I just measure the shaft at the end and I'm not too far off it now. It's a new piece of paper so it's actually taken off quite a lot of wood quite quickly. And you can see at the 10 inches we're still at 1132. So I'll just do it a little bit more. I wear the leather glove because it does get very hot. So let's start again. Here we go. Yeah, it's still a little bit fat. Take a little bit more off. I'm actually going down the whole length of it mainly now, just because we've got the shape. A little bit more. Yeah, so that's now 5/16 down at the end of the shaft.
That didn't take long, did it?
No, it's quite quick. I mean, it's a new piece of paper. If I'm tapering 12 shafts, by the end of it, it takes about 3 times as long, just because the paper runs out. So it should really not be so tight and just get a new piece of paper. So I'm going from the 80 grit paper down to some 120 grit, just to take some of the scratches out of it. But I'm also looking to remove any unevenness in the taper. And that's probably going to do. All I do now is...
Can I have a touch?
Yeah, sure. So all I'm going to do now is take the shaft out, grab it, spin the drill the other way. You can see the threads aren't damaged at all because it's been in the top hat thread former here. You can get these, they're only a couple of quid to buy. Hell of a tool, to be honest. And I'll just weigh it. Yeah, 339. Yeah, it's dropped about 11 grains, that one, from where it was. It was about 350 to start with. So what I'll also do now is just finish it off running up and down the shaft with 120 grit. Oh, as you can imagine, any scratches in the shaft are going to be going round it because the drill was spinning. That's it. That's a nice tapered shaft now. The balance point should be reasonable. Yeah, so it's got a front of centre already without a pile on it. All I would do now is I would go and check the straightness of the shaft again. You are putting some stresses and heat into it when you're spinning it round. So just check the straightness again and then away you go with finishing off the arrow.
See you next time.
Bye bye. Shooting this one in the Welsh chunks.
Oh. Here's a question for you, Roger. Why did you taper the back?
Taper the back basically because you want a healthy balance point. You want a balance point towards the front of the arrow when you compare it to the middle of the arrow. It's called the front of centre, but people get a bit paranoid, I think, about different percentages of front of centre. I just think with wooden arrows it's very hard to get a healthy front of centre. With carbon arrows it's very easy, but wooden arrows they tend to be very close to the middle of the arrow when you just make them up. So I like to do it for that. Tapered arrows though, they straighten up quicker. There's something about the shape, they flick around the bow better and straighten up quicker. They also, by straightening up quicker it means a lot more energy stays in the arrow, so it will go quicker without a doubt. I put tapered arrows through chronos further down the range, so not straight out of the bow, and they are travelling faster. I just got totally hooked on them, to be honest. To begin with, I didn't shoot them out of my recurves that were cut past centre. I tended to stick with shooting tapered arrows with long bows, the way you're shooting around a bow, and certainly with flat bow, which is cut before centre. So yeah, they just fly better balance point, and that's it really.
How important are arrows generally, do you think? If you're going to kind of divide the importance of equipment up into segments, what would you say about that?
I'd say that there's 3 components. You've got the archer, you've got the arrow, and you've got the bow. I would say it's 60% arrow, it's all about the arrow really. 35–40% archer, very little to the bow. 15–10% the bow. If you've got a good arrow and a good archer, they're going to very quickly learn the setup and hit things. Assuming the arrows are appropriate for the bow. But I had a bit of a bad back last year, and I went to the archery range and I picked up a £14 practice bow. I'd actually found an arrow that day that was I think 1300 spine, child's arrow, and I flinged a couple at close targets, got the arrow coming out, fairly straight. It had a horrible tiller on the bow as well. It looked like it had 2 top limbs on it. But I actually did about 20 targets on the course, just walking around with a 14-pound bow with a couple of friends, and I was more than keeping up with them. Dave Moore, Tony Barnett.
They know who they are.
They know who they are. It's great fun. Yeah, so it's all about the arrow. The bow means nothing. It's just nice.